The MLB Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is presented by WynnBET. WynnBET is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New York, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. From boosted same-game parlays to live in-game odds, WynnBET has what you need to win. Sign up today. Bet $100. Get a $100 free bet at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WynnBET. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET. Welcome, everybody, to the MLB Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. My name is Malcolm Bamford. I'm coming to you from Newcastle upon Tyne and the northeast corner of England. Today is Wednesday, Harry. I even had to think about the day, not even the date. Wednesday, December the 7th. Emily, here for just a little bit of MLB chat, really. Any topic that pops into our heads. A lot of free agent stuff, a lot of free agent pictures. Some breaking news today about an hour before we recorded as well. So various bits and bobs to touch on, and to help me with all of that. Day off today from the grindstone. Don't know why, but I'm sure he can explain. It's Mr. Dylan Rockford. D-Rock, how are you doing?
Malcolm, good to be with you. Yeah, remember I was about to take my trip to Arkansas for the dog.
Yeah.
And that's why I took off. So awful. I don't want to start it on a negative note. So when I was on my way to Arkansas, they called and said they had to put the dog down because he got really sick. So
shit.
No Malcolm dog for the time being right now.
What a shame.
They're going to get me a new dog. But yeah, just enjoying my last day off, back to the grindstone tomorrow.
Well, that's kind of took the wind out my sails because we try not to have too much. We try not to have too much chat before we come on, so we can actually have genuine sort of banter before we start the show. And the very first thing I've got written down, Dylan, is dog, because I hadn't heard anything about the dog. We were all looking. I know you were really, really looking forward to getting little Malcolm acclimatized, and that's the first thing I had written down. So yeah, sorry about that, mate. What's your plan then? You got to irons in the fire all ready to find something else, find another puppy?
So apparently he had like what we would have like his bronchitis in the chest, and then that got infected. So they had to make, ultimately they didn't want to give me a sick dog, thankfully. So I feel like a lot of breeders would do that. So that they didn't do that. I'm going to get another dog in the next litter, which hopefully, fingers crossed, around February, a little after Valentine's Day, I'll be able to get my next dog, hopefully. So it's all good. I mean, it happens. It's unfortunate, but everything happens for a reason, right?
Yeah, you're right about the legitimacy of the breeders, though. That is a good thing. They've obviously got the welfare of the animals at heart there, Dylan. Yeah. So, patience is a virtue, my man.
Yes, sir.
Moonaf's already in the chat, Dylan. Straighten your sit up straighten your tie and everything. I think Moonaf came to have a look at my studio setup for what it's worth. I've hung my Nighthawk shirt over the top of my. I've been doing all the World Cup stuff, so I've still got my England World Cup shirt underneath, as you can see, the little red collar sticking out. But I've hung my Nighthawk shirt over the top, so this is now a legit baseball environment. I'm also put this on over my pajama top. Dylan. It's 3:30 in the afternoon, and I've still got my pajamas on. What a life! So I've just blown my cover as well by putting my football top over the top. So I was hoping Captain Insano joined in the chat, actually, because I smashed him up in the NFL Fantasy League last week. Even though I'm where are you, Captain? Aye. Even though I'm bottom of the league, you've got to keep the league honest, haven't you? The integrity of the league is at stake, Dylan. So I pulled out all the stops and smashed Captain Insano up. So there's one for me. But I will remind him of that probably every night. A bit like when I beat Noah in the Fantasy Baseball League last year. He got about 6 weeks worth. So Captain Insano's got a few months of that. So just before we get on to some baseball stuff, the World Cup, Dylan, football, you're a bit of a football guy. How did you feel about the US going out the other day? I thought they were a little bit unlucky, they didn't do much wrong.
No, I thought the United States, they had every opportunity to win the game. I thought they outplayed the Netherlands, to be honest. And, that bounces just didn't go our way, right? The first 10 minutes, Pulisic falls right. He was onside and he just couldn't put it in. So, and then after that, the difference was every time they got and shot the ball, they made it and we didn't. So, they're the better team. They deserve to move on, but tough break for the United States. And hopefully when it comes to the States for the next World Cup, it will be ours.
Oh yeah, I thought they were really unlucky. I mean, they kind of dominated, and then the Dutch scored, and then they dominated again for another half an hour, and then the Dutch scored, and then just as the US got back into the game with a goal of their own and looked like they were going to build momentum, they just switched off at the back post, and the Dutch scored again. So I think they will be a very much better place in 4 years' time, hopefully for a bit of a deeper run.
Real quick,
I think people like to root for. Yeah, go on, mate. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say real quick that I think I've seen. I don't bet a lot of soccer, but in the beginning we weren't seeing a lot of goals. Now we're seeing a lot of goals. Why do you think that is?
I think it's just that there's a little bit more at stake in the opening games. A draw is not always a bad result, especially for kind of the lower ranked teams. If they can stay alive with a point, that gives them a chance going into game 3. So they can often play for a draw. Once you get through to the knockout stages, the draw doesn't do you any good. Obviously, we saw Morocco yesterday play for a 0-0 draw and get it, which can be done. It's a high-risk strategy because the minute you concede one goal, you're finished. But that does work, but teams have got to go for it. And then the minute you go one down, you've got to kind of open up. Teams can catch you on the break. So, yeah, quarterfinals start on Friday. England plays Saturday night. I think there's going to be goals in that one. If you take any tip away from this for the football, Saturday night, something like France 2, England 2, maybe to go into extra time, over 3.5 goals, something like that. Certainly over 2.5 and both teams to score. So that's going to be my pick for that one. On to the baseball, and I got tickets for the Cards v the Cubs, Dylan, which is being held in London, International Series, June the 23rd and the 24th. Next summer, a Saturday afternoon and a Sunday afternoon game. I missed out last time they came around on when it was the Yankees versus the Red Sox. Then we had a lot of COVID, etc. So I got my pre-sale notification last week. Went on kind of in the early evening, and I just thought it was a little bit expensive, Dylan. Which I suppose is the modern way with things. Like, if I wanted tickets for both days, you could get what I had to decide was, Dylan, was either one game of decent seats, just go to one day, or both days of shit seats. Because the budget was round about £300, which was a lot. So I was going to go the 2 days, and then Ticketmaster just absolutely hump you with, it was like £12 handling fee per ticket. So if you wanted 2 tickets for each day, it was getting up for 50 quid in handling fees. So I kind of spat the dummy out at that and decided I got 2 decent seats. So I'm in on the Saturday, game 1. I am in right centre field, just behind the bullpen. So the bullpens are out there in centre field. So I'm about 10 yards behind the bullpen. So I should be able to see a little bit more, see what the bullpens are up to, etc. But the tickets for that were about £135, which is a little bit expensive. By the time you stick on all the admin fees, then I'll have to travel to London and find somewhere to stay, beer money, etc. But so June the 23rd next year, Dylan, are you coming to London to come to the game with me?
Yeah, if you have an extra ticket, I'm so down to go to London. I've been there once. It was amazing. Never been to a baseball game there. I'm interested to see. Last time they went there, we saw a lot of runs you were talking about. So are they playing at a soccer field and just making it into a baseball field?
Yeah. What it is, it's the Olympic Stadium. So obviously the 2012 London Olympics, they then made that into West Ham United's stadium. And a lot of West Ham United supporters weren't happy. I've actually been there, West Ham 2, Newcastle 0, about 4 or 5 years ago. Because it's an athletic stadium. So you've got the whole thing with a running track, and it's not conducive to watching football. But they've adjusted it, they've changed it. So it's there. Yeah, last time the Yankees and the Red Sox came out. Now, I can't remember what the scores were. I know there was about 14 runs in the first inning, and neither pitcher made it out of the first inning in game 1. And that game finished something like 25-13. And then there was about 20-odd runs in the second game as well. And no one really knew why, because the dimensions of the park weren't silly. It wasn't a tiny little ballpark. And equally, we don't know if it was the pitchers, the fatigue from travelling or what. But both games were just a little bit wild, so it'll be interesting to see. So yeah, I'm hopefully get some decent a pitching matchup. Really, what I want to see is some runs, but also a nice pitching matchup. Jameson Tyone's just got to the Cubs a couple of hours ago. We're going to touch on that. Maybe Jack Flaherty for the Cardinals, or it might be Adam Wainwright site and that kind of thing. So what we're going to look at for the next half an hour or so, Dylan, is the last sort of 6 or 7 days worth of free agent moves. Winter meeting started last week. It's been a really busy start to the window. We thought it might be. It's kind of a perfect storm of baseball things that have led to. There's a lot of money sloshing around. There's still a little bit of a hangover from the CBA last season. This time last year, I think, was the first day of the lockout, actually, when we weren't even sure if we were going to get a baseball season. And then you've got the pandemic season before that. So this is kind of the first year where everything's settled down and is in place, and the hot stove is bubbling away, and we've got off to a really hot start. So we've got a lot of things to talk about. We were mainly going to do pitches until Moonaf decided to throw a stick in the spokes of our bicycle and got us to call an audible. We're going to talk about some hitters later on, but just a little bit of general chat about everything. I think the place to start, particularly with you, Dylan, being a New York Mets fan, is Jacob deGrom to the Texas Rangers. Now, what we got, 5 years, $185 million. I think the big surprise here was that it was 5 years, because it's going to take him up to his age 40 season, or his age 39 season, maybe. He's 35 years old now. I think the sticking point with the Mets was they wouldn't go the 5th year. Mets offered him 4. Texas were prepared to offer him 5. The Rangers spent £500 million last off-season, and were still rubbish, won 68 games, but they've kept on going. Maybe it was more than a 1-year project. Downside, I suppose, is the little bit of injury, but that's one of those things with injuries, is just you can't do anything about it. You just have to go for it. So first of all, Dylan, I just wanted to ask you what his time at the Mets, how you remember his time at the Mets. What did he mean to Mets fans, to you? And were you devastated to see him go? Just a general feeling as a fan, really.
Yeah, as a fan, he's probably been the best pitcher I've ever seen in my life. Guy, when he was on. There's no better pitcher in baseball. Yeah, I'll remember I went to a bunch of DeGrom games. Really wanted him to stay. Unfortunately, he didn't. He got what he wanted. He got the 5 years, $185 million. And, he wanted years and security. And it looked like, and honestly, it didn't look like the market was as big as I think maybe he thought it would be as well. The Mets, like you said, they did offer him a similar contract. They just weren't willing to commit the 5 years, which, I can't blame them. He does get injured a lot, and that's a lot of money to invest in a guy who's not really going to play a whole season. So at first I was disappointed. I don't know if you saw, but I put that video out on Twitter. I was down in Nashville and a little drunk, I must admit, but when I got the news, I was at the bar. I made a video and was, I was maybe saying I might not be a Mets fan, but a few days after, the Mets, they signed Verlander. So I'm a Mets fan again. But, back to DeGrom, he just couldn't stay healthy. And to give a guy that much money, we need stability. And as good as DeGrom was, sometimes sometimes he just misses a large portion of the season. We can't afford that. You could see it in the contracts we're giving and offering players like in Verlander. He only signed a 2-year deal. We're not giving these big contracts out only to like Lindor. So, the one thing I did have an issue with was him saying that he's committed to playing on a winning team and that the Rangers are on the path to a winning culture. That's hilarious, because the Rangers in 2020, they went 22-38. That was the shortened season. In 2021, they went 60-102. And then last year they went 68-94. They haven't had a winning season since 2016. So don't tell me you're going for their winning culture, because that's not it. You're lying now. He went with the money, and that's, he went with the money. He went with the location, no state tax in Texas. And that's his right. Hopefully he can stay healthy, because if he is, he's the best pitcher in baseball. And then that is a good deal for the Rangers. So unfortunately for the Mets, they didn't resign him. But you look at the Rangers rotation now, who do they really have? Jacob deGrom, Martin Perez, John Gray, Dane Dunning. They added Adam Hanley, but it's still not a good team, I don't think. So it is what it is.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point, really, was where does this take the Texas Rangers? Do you know what breeds a winning culture, Dylan?
Winning.
Is the right answer, correct? Yes, CC Ryan Kramer on that one. So looking at Texas, say they did spend $500 million last year. The lineup, they've got Simeon and Seager. They hopefully get a full season out of Josh Young over at third base. I think he's going to be a big piece for them. But the rotation, so yeah, you mentioned deGrom, Perez, and Gray. You've got Jake Odorizzi thrown in there as well. And then just this morning, we've had to add our notes because they signed Andrew Heaney.
Yep.
Has gone there for
but does that really push them over the edge, though?
Well, no, it doesn't. It is. I mean, the fifth rotation spot I had down as Dane Dunning / Spencer Howard / Glenn Otto / Cole Raggins, kind of players who might be something. I feel like Andrew Heaney's name is in my. I'm limited in terms of duration. I've been a baseball fan. Is that Andrew Heaney's the one name? He's there every year. He gets moved every year. He's always talked about as having a breakout year. Fantasy, he gets a load of fantasy chat, whether some people are completely fading him the other way around. 2 years, $25 million was the deal for Heaney. So you put Heaney in. I mean, if he's your 5, I've got no issue with that with those other guys. Like I say, Dunning, Howard, Otto, Raggins. Don't forget you've got Jack Leiter as well. And then Cole Wynn's another one who could come in. So that's all right. They've got some depth there. I mean, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now that's 11 starting pitchers we can name. And yeah, some of them, like the Cole Wynns, aren't necessarily ready now, but by the end of the season they could be. And we've seen decent things out of Cole Raggins and Dane Dunning. So I think the other thing with Texas is they appointed the manager, Bruce Bochy. Mm-hmm. And they didn't appoint Bruce Bochy if they weren't attempting to build a winning team there. Bruce Bochy wouldn't have gone there without some assurances, promises. Now, managers, something that not really on my radar, but I think Bochy's well thought of, and they must have a project, I think, in place, Dylan, for him to have gone there.
Yeah, you got to think, and you got Moonoff in the chat. Breaking news. Yeah, the Red Sox, his Red Sox, they signed a good closer. They got Kelly Jansen, 2 years, $32 million. So that this offseason's been really jam packed with, especially the few days. I really didn't think, or looking back to last couple seasons of the offseason, they never really been this jam packed. I think they're taking a little notes from basketball and football in their offseason, how crazy they get. So. Love the craziness for the baseball, and good for Moonoff's Red Sox. They needed a closer. Yeah,
I think that's the fourth signing we've had so far today. Bear in mind, it's not even lunchtime in the States, and everyone's very busy. The obvious place to go after Justin Verlander, after Jacob deGrom to Texas, is Justin Verlander, because as downhearted as the Mets would have been, within 24 hours, they had their replacement, Justin Verlander, signed for 2 years, $86 million. That's a third-year option for $35 million if he pitches 140 innings in 2024. The Mets had lost Taijuan Walker and Chris Bassett. I mean, this takes Verlander into his age 40 and 41-year-old seasons. They can add him to 38-year-old Max Scherzer and 36-year-old Cookie Carrasco. So does this just instantly offset deGrom? Is that all this does?
I think so. For the time being, for the 2 years, it's a lot of money, and everyone's like, well, why wouldn't you give that money to deGrom? But, it's like I said, it's only a 2-year deal. It's around 86. So he's like 43 a year. He does have that third option. And, I'm glad, like I mentioned it last pod, I said it's okay if Jacob winds up leaving, because we need a backup plan. We need to know what we're going to do if we do lose him. And apparently they did have a plan. They went after Justin Verlander big, Carlos Rodon, he's still out there. Hopefully that would be a nice 1, 2, 3 punch. I don't know if we'll be able to get Chris Bassett back. It doesn't look like he declined our offer. Taiwan Walker just left he's a snake, by the way. He just left to the fucking Phillies. But yeah, that's the worst. We'll get to that in a sec. But, Justin Verlander, with his short time in just 3 years with the Astros, 3-time All-Star, 2-time Cy Young. He won the World Series twice. He's fantastic in those 2 years. If he could stay healthy, I think it's just I think he might be better if he could stay healthy, because that was the big bugaboo for Jacob deGrom, is that he couldn't stay on the field. But, Justin Verlander, he's 12th all time in strikeouts with 3,198. Max Scherzer is 13th with 3,193. So every time these guys trot out there, we're going to be seeing history. So like you said, right now, the current rotation, from what I think, it's going to be Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander. You got Cookie Carrasco at 3, David Peterson, and then you got a guy like Tyler McGill. So definitely need I don't think we're done adding arms. It will be interesting to see who we add next.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The Mets have to make a couple more moves, just get some more depth in there. And finally on this one, just how does it affect the Astros, really? I think they've got over other star pitchers leaving. Gerrit Cole being one that immediately springs to mind. And they've still managed to win with that kind of bunch of almost homegrown talent they've got there, Dylan. So you expect the Astros, you don't expect this to affect the Astros particularly?
No, they're a well-run organization, and Moonoff knows a little better than I do. He is from Houston. He was saying how that they just weren't willing to pay him that much money. It was a lot of money, even as a Met fan. It was ridiculous how much he got paid. But I still think Framber Valdez is really good. He could be elevated now that Justin Verlander is gone. So I don't worry with them. Like you saw on shortstop when they got rid of Carlos Correa. They just drafted another guy. They're just so well run that I don't really worry about them. They're going to be right back into the playoffs and into the World Series without Justin Verlander.
Yeah, I think Moonaf's in the chat.
A little inappropriate too.
He's making very inappropriate sexist remarks, Dylan, and I'll be speaking to the human resources department.
What if you and I did that? Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Young white people, it's just young. I mean, there's nothing. I don't know why I made myself young then for a minute, Dylan. I've got absolutely no right. I'm old enough to be your dad. But yeah, he just said that the Astros will go out and make a trade for an ace if they need to, because why not? And they will. Hunter Brown as well, Moonaf makes a good point about him being in that rotation. The MLB Gambling Podcast, our headline sponsor here is WinBet, live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia, bringing the excitement of Win Las Vegas to online sports betting and casino play. Exclusive rewards right at your fingertips with Win Rewards on WinBet. Same game parlays there. Get your old high-vis jacket construction zone going. You can sign up today and receive a special offer. Bet 100 to win $100. Loads to choose from. Head to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/winbet so they know that we sent you. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/WYNNBET to claim your free bet today. Offer subject to change. T's and C's at winbet.com. Must be 21 or older and present in the state where playthrough WinBet is available. If you're someone who knows a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. I'm going to carry on going sequentially in the notes that I made. We're getting to a couple of big bats in a little while. But just some bits and bobs here among the pitching ranks. Clayton Kershaw staying the LA Dodgers. Doesn't really change much, I don't think. They lost Andrew Heaney, who we've just spoken about. Yeah. Tyler Anderson gone to the Angels down the road. I think if Kershaw struggles, it doesn't affect the Dodgers much. They can just move on. Carlos Rodon's a pitcher who I think the Dodgers will be interested in, waiting on a landing spot for him. So any thoughts on Clayton Kershaw, Dylan?
No, I'm just I'm happy he got paid, $1 million, 1 year, $20 million. He got the $5 million signing bonus. His loyalty to the Dodgers is just different, and I respect that. He wants to stay with the team all his career, I respect that. He's coming for his 16th season with the Dodgers. He's 3 wins away from 200, 193 strikeouts shy of 3,000 in his career. So another guy that every time he steps onto the mound, we'll be seeing history. There are legitimate concerns, though, especially given his back issues that he dealt with for the past few years. But, I still think Kershaw, if he's able to stay healthy and not pitch so many innings, I think he should be a top 45, maybe top 50 pitcher in the MLB.
Yeah, fair enough. I think Munaf's left now, Dylan, so we can start arsing about it. He won't know anything about it. Another sort of good old name here, Kyle Gibson, to the Orioles. No real shakes about this. I just wanted to mention it. I think
I actually like
mainly
it
because the new park dimensions there in Camden Yards. So the right-handed pitchers do okay there, and I think this will suit Kyle Gibson. That Baltimore rotation, they were good last year. They get John Means back.
He was my favorite a few years ago.
Yeah, he'll be back. Austin Voth, Kyle Bradish. They've got Grayson. Rodon's another one. They need a lefty. They really, really need a lefty. You've got Dean Kramer, who was a bit of a favorite on the show. DL Hall is still polishing his stuff. So Kyle Gibson to the Orioles. Like I say, not much to add to that one. And then this was a bit of an interesting one. Zach Eflin to the Tampa Bay Rays, Dylan. 3 years, $40 million. This is the Tampa Bay Rays' biggest ever deal.
Yeah.
Which is a bit odd, isn't it? Because it's not a nothing name. Like, no offense to Zach, I'm sure he's a lovely man. But people just keep saying he's got potential. But he seems to have had potential for ages. I think he's 30 now. He's been around for years and years. He finished the season as the Phillies closer. He was closing games out in the postseason.
Yeah.
But the Rays love to tinker. They have a lot of previous for picking up pitchers like this. Zach Eflin likes to tinker as well. So between them, they might be able to land on something. They clearly see something there. And the rest of that rotation, Shane McClanahan, Tyler Glasnow, Drew Rasmussen, and Jeffrey Springs, the lefty. This is a really, really interesting move, Dylan, I think.
Yeah, I love the move, actually, for Zach to get Zach Eflin. And it was between the Red Sox and the Rays. And to be honest, it was the same offer, 3 years, $40 million from both clubs. But, he got the no state income tax for the state of Florida. It's close to his home. Zero pressure from the fans and the media like you would get in Boston. So I think it kind of was a no-brainer for him. And that might be silly to take into factor, but those are what guys really take into consideration when they're signing these contracts. And I think that's why he chose Tampa instead of Boston. He had a good, 7 seasons in Philly. And what I thought was really good for him, he doesn't walk a lot of batters. And I think that's and it fits exactly what the Rays rotation really is. He's only walked 4.1% of the batters he's faced in the past 2 seasons combined. That's the lowest walk rate amongst 144 pitchers who have thrown 160 plus innings in that span. So I think it's a great fit. As for the Kyle Gibson, really to touch on that real quick, they're going to be in the market for a starting pitcher. He is 35, which kind of worries me a little bit, but I think it should be a good fit. He has great defenders playing behind him. Like you mentioned, Camden Yards is becoming more of a pitcher's ballpark. And if he could stay healthy, make 25 to 30 starts, 150 innings, I think it's a good 1-year value play for the Orioles. Last season with the Phillies, he was 10-8. Had a big ERA, 5.05 ERA, 31 games, 31 starts, 167 innings, 144 strikeouts. Now he has a much better defense behind him. So I think we could expect a better season stat-wise for Kyle Gibson. So a guy I definitely am going to have my eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a couple of other to mention. First off, Jameson Taillon to the Cubs, 4 years, $68 million. That happened about 2 hours ago. Taillon again, one of those names, a bit like Andrew Heaney, talked about a lot, Pittsburgh, and then ended up at the Yankees, and he's moved around a little bit, never quite settled and got it together, but always, again, fantasy circles, he's always talked about a lot. And then the one that you mentioned through gritted teeth a little while ago, Dylan, Taijuan Walker to the Phillies, 4 years, £72 million. I think that goes really nicely. He slots in nicely with Wheeler, Nola, and Suarez. So yeah, how you feeling about Taiwan Walker? You called him a snake, I believe earlier.
He is a snake. He's a snake. Like, how do you? He knows the rivalry and like how much hatred. Like the Mets and the Braves, like they're respectful rivals. You know, like we think each other as like quality opponents. The Philly, you know what it is, Malcolm. You're all the way across the pond. You have to. I gotta say this with respect. Our bosses are Philly fans too, so just the people in Philly are just like the worst. I know New York.
Well, mate, I could feel the respect there. The respect was coming through, oozing out the screen at me. I'm covered in respect at this point.
It's respectfully, like they're just, and I could admit that the New York fan base is just as bad. It's the tri-state area, New York, Philly fans, they're the worst. So to go to our rival in division, you had other offers, but you went there for the money, and hey, that's your prerogative. But you know, a day after signing Trey Turner, they add to their rotation, and as much as I hate them, you know, they're really good. You got Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Suarez, Taiwan Walker. Now that's a solid rotation, you know, and we didn't even mention Trey Turner there, but the outfield, you got Brandon Marsh, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner. They moved Bryson Scott to second base. You got Reese Hopkins at first, Alex Bohm, JT Realmuto. You got Nick Castellanos. Watch out for them. They're going to be a scary team this year.
And you're going to write a groveling letter to Sean Green the minute you get off this show? Do you think?
Yeah. My resignation letter is coming soon.
That might be taken out of your hands, mate. You might not have to resign. So yeah, I think that's covered the pitchers that we wanted to talk about. A couple of bats then that we almost have to talk about. First, we'll go to a move from last week. Trey Turner. Phillies will stay on the Phillies 11 years, $300 million. The first thing that terrified me about this move was that by the time this contract expires, I'll be 58 years old. Wow. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I wasn't happy about that. Someone, I think it was Johnny Junter, a Johnny friend of the show, Johnny, who he tweeted out something like, well, by the time his contract finishes, I'll be 35. And that got me thinking. And I did the maths. I was like, shit, I'm going to be 58 years old. So yeah, that was a really sobering thought. I haven't quite got over that, I'll be honest with you. They had Bryson Stott in a shortstop. He'll move around somewhere, maybe across to second or third, perhaps. A good rookie. There's been a lot of talk about the speed element. Obviously, a large portion of what Trey Turner does is speed related, and that can't be there in 11 years' time. However, and that this contract's going to cripple the Phillies at the back end as well. But equally, I think anyone who knows baseball and front offices know that you have to load these contracts up at the front, and in a few years' time, that's not really going to be factored. I think this is a great deal, and the overpayment at the back end doesn't really factor in for me. I think it's just it's an economic thing, it's a sports thing, it's a baseball thing, and yeah, Trey Turner is absolutely stellar, and they'll get 5 or 6 years of really good production out of him before they might have to do something else with him. Yeah. So what did you make of Trey Turner to the Phillies?
Well, remember I told you last pod I wanted him to come to the Mets, and another one where they just go right to the rival. But I want to ask you a question. I know we've been seeing it more and more in baseball, especially these just long years. It's not so much the money, because I understand where the money's there. It's the 9-10 years. Can you, I guess from a front office perspective, if they win 1, maybe 2 World Series, it's worth it in the long run, correct?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they're clearly going into a winning part of the cycle. So if that's 3 or 4 years and Trey Turner's part of that, then yeah, it pays for itself.
It pays for itself. Would you sign a guy for 9-10 years?
I think in baseball, absolutely, yeah. It's part of the game, and it's just part of the system. Obviously, there's still a lot of things that happen in in baseball and NFL that sort of I end up scratching my head around, because it's not the culture of how we do trades, transactions, transfers in this country. So you see a deal like that, you tend to get maybe the longest you'll see for a football is 4 or 5 years. And that's really just to protect their resale value. You never see a good player going to a bad team. It just wouldn't happen. That's why you end up with teams dominating, because it's not a franchise system. It's not a draft system, anything like that. The good players, the good teams can buy the good players. So you never see even so, like DeGrom to the Rangers. That would be mind blowing if you put that in football terms, and said Kevin De Bruyne is going to join Crystal Palace. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. That just couldn't happen. But in baseball and in US sports, it happens all the time. So, but the length of contract really just protects their resale value, because once a player's out of contract, they enter free agency, can go where they want. So if you've got them signed up for 4 or 5 years, you can then sell them 2 or 3 years in for the 40, 50, 80, 100 million pounds. But yeah, this just seems to be a baseball thing. And if that's the way it is, I'm sure there's people, economists and people in the front office who know how this works better than us. It won't just be throwing good money after bad, Dylan. So
yeah, it might actually work well for the Mets. You know, he'll be around 40 when the contract's up, and the Mets love to fucking sign 40-year-olds. So
absolutely,
it might work out for him. But you know, it sucks to see him go to the Phillies. He's fantastic. He's worth every penny that he got. I can't express how much I do hate the Phillies, though. The Phillies are like that one friend you have in the group where he knows you kind of like a girl, and then you try to go after and you tell him, and then he goes after that same girl and gets her. It's
that's me.
Snake in the grass. That's exactly that's what it is. But no, in all seriousness, the Phillies, I feel like they had no idea he was coming to Philly. You know, he had a much better offer on the table with the Padres, but he ultimately wanted to be in Philly. And I think that World Series run last year really helped their case. This is a scary team, like I mentioned, and I think it helps them defensively, especially since this team made so many errors last season. So if you are a shortstop in the league and you want a huge contract, just play for the Dodgers. The last 3 shortstops who played for the Dodgers and then hit free agency, 2019, Manny Machado, he signed with the Padres for $300 million. 2021, Corey Seager signed for $325 million. Then Trey Turner signed for $300 million.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. I might do that myself. One more to talk about, which is one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest, broke this morning. We had a bit of a false start overnight, in that
can't trust him.
Arson Judge had signed for the Giants. It then transpired that he hadn't, and Aaron Judge hadn't. Who was it? Was it Jeff Passan? I think had gone off a little bit early.
No, it was John Heyman or whatever.
That was it. Yeah, John Heyman had gone off a bit too soon.
There's only 2 guys you could trust: Ken Rosenthal and Jeff Passan.
Yeah, absolutely. So Aaron Judge has re-signed with the Yankees. So that gives us a little bit less to talk about than if he had gone to somewhere like San Francisco. 9 years, $360 million. Doesn't change an awful lot, because he's at the same place. So. When we talked last week about possible landing spots, my only worry for Judge was just the health and keeping that big body of his going. But health, just a question mark. DeGrom, Verlander, and now Aaron Judge. There's nothing really you can do about that. But it did make sense to me in kind of the biggest of markets, and a unique market as well in New York, as much as other fan bases don't like to talk about it. You've already a couple of times over the last couple of weeks and months explained how the New York thing works. And I think it just made sense to me that Judge, I didn't ever think he was going anywhere else, didn't I?
Yeah, no, neither did I. And, you know, I kind of feel for the San Francisco fan base. They thought they were getting Aaron Judge, and it's been a hell of a 24 hours for San Francisco fans. But, you know, 9 years, $360 million. He's getting about $40 million a year. And, you know, even though he plays for the Yankees, and I hate the Yankees as well, he's he's a very hard guy not to root for. He's a bet on yourself kind of guy. And I respect that. He's worth every penny that he got. And he went out and he had himself a historic season and earned himself about 60 million more dollars. So I'm not shocked that he stayed, as much as I didn't want him to return to the Bronx. I had a gut feeling he would wind up back with them. It came down to 3 teams: the Giants, the Padres, and the Yankees. And apparently once he flew into San Diego, the Yankees bumped their offer and he chose to remain a Yankee. I'm happy for him, especially after the year he had last season. He deserved everything. Hopefully for the Yankees' sake, he stays healthy. He lives up to the contract. He has better success in the playoffs. That was another little asterisk that we had on him, is that he doesn't really come in the playoffs. So another thing I thought was cool about it was when they're signing him, they're allegedly giving him the C on the chest. They're going to make him captain of the team, which, I think he should be. So I'm happy for him. And, I like you. I ultimately, it's nice to discuss for content reasons that he might end up somewhere else, but in the back of my mind, I always knew he was going to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really indulged in New York Yankees today, Dylan. I've sat here all day in my pajamas, as discussed, doing a lot of World Cup stuff. Quarterfinals coming up at the weekend, so I fired up my dodgy Fire Stick to find something to watch in the background, and I found the 30 for 30 series, which is an ESPN series, I think, documentaries. All different sports documentaries. There was a few that weren't interesting me. So I watched 3 baseball ones today. I watched the people who invented fantasy baseball, this kind of launch of rotisserie fantasy baseball, which then turned into this billion-pound industry that everyone plays, and these guys got really nothing for it. I then watched something on the 1982 Little League World Series and some team from Washington State who beat Taiwan. And then I watched the whole thing about the Steinbrenners era. In the New York Yankees, when the old Yankee Stadium was getting torn down and they were moving across the street. So I've watched a lot of, I feel like I'm still trying to learn, people. Every day is a day at school, so I'm still trying to complete my baseball education. But I've been well and truly indulged in a lot of Yankees history. And yeah, they are all, there's a swagger and a confidence about New York Yankees fans, Dylan, that you don't
100%.
see. Yeah, I think the nearest comp we would have, I think, is Manchester United, who kind of just all believe their own hype. Like, they just make you shake your head, just like you've been doing. You're absolutely right.
George Steinbrenner, he's happy in his grave right now. He wouldn't have let Aaron Judge walk either if he was still alive. So I'm happy he got it. Brian Cashman, the GM, he's signed for a 4-year deal as well. So he's returning. And, I think he has about 4 or 5 years left. If they don't make the playoffs again, he has to be done. Changes need to be made if the Yankees can't get over this hump. So that was another news. And another documentary you should watch. I don't want you to keep watching these Yankee things, but Derek Jeter, the captain. Oh my God. It's like a 4 or 5 part documentary. It's fantastic. As much as, I'm not a Yankee fan, it's just great content, and how Derek Jeter and the Steinbrenners, their relationship was, and how he became such a hero in New York. So that's another good one you should watch.
Okay, I'll stick that on my list. I think, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's got us to the end of this show. Dylan, is there anything else you wanted to touch on? Any people or topics that we missed out?
No, it should be an exciting few more days, few more weeks in the offseason. Hopefully the Mets could add another arm. And hopefully next week we come back with some better news for my Mets.
Yeah, absolutely. So keep your eyes peeled for, we're going to, as we said last week, we're going to keep rolling out these shows during the off season, maybe 1 or 2 a week. Me and Dylan did one last week. I think Noah and Moona followed it up as well. We sort of split stuff AL, NL, but plenty more stuff to come over the off season. Hopefully, like Dylan says, remains interesting and exciting. I'm going to start building up my excitement to my first ever MLB game, which is only sort of 6.5 months away now. I hope it doesn't get rained out. That would be an absolute disaster. So we'll have to see. So keep your eyes peeled. Thank you very much. If you get a chance to get across to Spotify and give us a 5-star rating over there. I know it's Spotify wrapped season. Everyone's been plugging their Spotify accounts, but it makes a huge difference. Apart from that, the usual places, the SGPN app and the website, like, rate, review, and things like that. Dylan, thank you very much. What are you going to do with the rest of your day off?
Got some. Got an MMA article to get over to our editor Jeff Fox, so I got to do that. And just enjoying my day off. It's a rainy one over here in Jersey today.
Okay. Yeah, I've got 2 World Cup shows to broadcast later on. So if you're looking for a
real quick,
yeah.
do you think you guys are sure underdogs right now to France? Do you guys like your chance?
Yeah, I've got England winning. I think I've gone 2-2 draw. England win it in extra time. Neither team really look. Certainly, France haven't kept a clean sheet in this tournament, but have been really, really offensive. England have scored 12 goals. France have scored 9 in the 4 games. So there's going to be goals, but England might just sneak it in extra time, Dylan. So like I say, I'm not a gigantic England fan. If they get knocked out, it will not. But 10 minutes later, I'll be absolutely fine. Like, it doesn't spoil my day. Not like if Newcastle lose a game and I'm kicking next door's cat for a fortnight. That doesn't affect me at all. So I'm not too partisan about it, but I do think they might sneak through against the French. But I've got all my eggs in one basket on Brazil still to win the tournament.
It should be a good one. I think it sucks that Cristiano Ronaldo isn't the best player in the world anymore. Is it Mbappe now? I mean, if you had to, I guess, pick one player to start your organization, would you pick him?
Well, you would do, because the age difference. Yeah, what's Mbappe? Is he like 23 or something? And obviously Ronaldo also seems intent on making a tit of himself at every opportunity. He did it with Manchester United. He did it pre-tournament. Then he started again. He got left out last night because he's been throwing his toys around. And the kid they brought in, and pretty much unheard of kid from Benfica, came in and scored a hat-trick. So that made me laugh.
Yeah, and he definitely is not going to start next match. And did you see after the whole team, after they won, he just walked off. They were all celebrating and, as a team, and he just by himself walking off. Again, making it about himself.
Mate, he should sign for the New York Red Bulls. He sounds like you'd fit right in New York. I think that's his his market. Thanks very much, Dylan. Really appreciate it. It's been fun. Nice little a UK friendly podcast for me. So I've enjoyed that. Enjoy the rest of your day, mate. Your day off. Thanks everyone for listening. Enjoy whatever sport you're getting involved in and any bets that you might have. And until next time, we will see you down the road. Cheers.